All right, guys, good afternoon. I have Mark Edward Lewis from TikTok Taxx. How you doing, Mark?
I'm great. Thanks for letting me be here.
Yeah, of course. I appreciate you coming on. Looked at some of your stuff on TikTok. I didn't see anything on Instagram. Do you have an Instagram account for your?
I do. Yes,
Okay,
it's Lewis Mark Edward.
good deal. Um, Saw that you have Incorporate for Freedom. That's a new book you just wrote.
Yes,
Uh,
indeed.
when did that come out?
Yesterday, the 26th of April.
Perfect timing. Okay, great, great.
Yeah,
So,
very good.
how long have you been on TikTok?
Since February.
Oh, not bad. Okay, so you've
Yeah,
been
I
pushing.
started out with somebody told me, well, actually, technically January, because somebody said, "Well, you should be on TikTok with all the stuff you do." I'm like, I'm too old. And they're like, no, 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 try it. So I get on, and I get lifetime banned. Lifetime banned. And all I'm doing is copying stuff from my Twitter posts and putting it, but for whatever reason, lifetime ban. So, and I said, this is stupid. I'm like, no, 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 just try it again. So I got a better handle. And so far they haven't banned me. And I got 60 friends to come say like me from Facebook. And now we're 40,000 moving up.
Nice, yeah. That seems like a nice beginning. 40,000 seems to be the catalyst to 100, and you start
Seems like it.
trickling in a few dollars there, and it starts becoming money making revenue there. A little bit of a taste of what's out there because it feels like it's almost like the Wild Wild West. And what used to be cable television, everybody's vying for that attention that's lost, and
Yeah,
everybody's out there trying to get their piece of the pie right now.
that's right. That's right.
On that note, what got you started? What made you say I'm going to go from? I would say you were in some kind of finance. You have knowledge in C corps. You got knowledge in LLCs. You seem to be giving people advice. What transition? Well, actually, why don't you tell everybody how you started in that first before we get into the transition into TikTok?
Well, there's sort of a transition to get into that. I wrote music for film and television in Hollywood for 35 years, and that was all my degrees, everything. That's what I've done, and worked on all kinds of stuff that you would probably have seen, and that's been lovely. And then I got kind of disaffected when the market kind of changed and started really becoming something that I didn't want to do. But in that process, I had a friend, my best friend, in fact, had me over with his family for dinner. And this was in 2001, way back. And they told me, they said, you know that it's illegal for the IRS to tax you on your income if you live in the United States? And I had no tax issues up until that point, no problems at all. And I was like, what? And so that started me, along with several thousand other people, on a journey for 15 years of exploring what that meant, doing all kinds of crazy things, trying to bring down the Federal Reserve, becoming a sovereign for 10 years, to the point where you couldn't, like a cop would pull me over speeding and couldn't give me a speeding ticket, setting off hundreds, if not thousands, if not millions of dollars worth of IRS receipts and certificates, and it became really an all-consuming full-time job, especially when the accountants with guns show up at your door and they say, come with me, you've committed fraud, we're going to take you to jail and all this other stuff. You have to know how to respond. And it got to the place where every time the doorbell would ring, my adrenaline would spike, like who's going to be at the door today? And a lot of people on TikTok and otherwise, they ask me about my history in that. And to sum that up, it's don't do that. Because I got out of it. I went back into the Matrix, as it were. Got out and went back into the Matrix. And what I love about the Matrix is how they portrayed what it's like to get out. You remember what it's like to be out. Like,
Yeah,
how
yeah,
would you
yeah, yeah. That
describe?
movie was great. I'm not gonna lie, that movie was great, and
Yeah,
it's quite a rabbit hole that you went through. In
yeah,
2001, right? You said 2001 is when this whole thing's okay. Very cool.
yeah,
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 continue.
yeah. So, how would you describe the life on the Nebuchadnezzar in the Matrix?
Cold and brutal.
And food, good, bad?
Yeah, you can make a lot of analogies to the Bible on that stuff.
Well, that too.
So when you leave the tyranny of Pharaoh and you're a slave and you
You're
go
in the
into
wilderness.
you're in the wilderness and you're walking in circles, and you know why you're walking in circles? Because you're trying to get to the other side, but you're not ready yet.
You're not ready.
You think you're ready. You think you're ready, but you really can't see. Because sometimes when you're aiming at a target, you actually can't see what you're aiming at.
Yeah.
You're a fool before you're a master.
Right. And in the common law, God decides when you're fully ready. And he knows you're fully ready to move into the promised land or to become a sovereign or to whatever that is, because you start passing the tests instead of failing them. And in that analogy, your analogy, the Israelites kept failing tests until 40 years later, they're finally like, oh, hey, listen, we'll take you there. And then they go. And in the Matrix, it's much the same way. They're failing tests until finally they get it right and they go. But I personally like to eat steak. And I got tired of not eating steak. I got tired of eating sludge and being in the cold, hard Nebuchadnezzar and being in fear for my life every day that sentinels are going to come. Literally, they use the word sentinels. I found that it's interesting. Sentinels, searchers who come find you to come kill you. That's kind of how it was. And I'm like, this is dumb. So I got back in and to the Matrix and have been very happy here since. But the knowledge that I accumulated on the Uniform Commercial Code, commercial honor, dealing with government agencies, how they really work, how the banking laws really work, and how banking has been defrauding people since 1913 has really assisted me in understanding the best way for citizens, you and I, citizens in the Matrix, to be able to keep their wealth. It's not making the wealth that's hard. It's keeping it. There's taxes and the sirens of dumping your money into the market that's designed to take it from you, and all these other things that are trying to take away your assets instead of allowing you to keep them. And not to mention lawsuits and the litigious society and all that other stuff. So in the process of doing what we did, we had to figure out how to not hide assets, but move our assets away from us. Because if you don't own something, they can't take it from you. It's not possible. That's not my stuff. You can take this if it's mine, but you can't take mine. That's not mine. I don't own that. I might control it, but it's not mine. So we tried trusts, we tried corporation souls, we tried nonprofits, all kinds of things until we finally landed on an S corps and LLCs and C corp. We tried it all until we finally realized a combination is what works. And it didn't occur to me until one day in about 2007, and this is when it all started to click. 2007, I had just finished my first comic book that I'd written, and I hired this amazing artist back when I was trying to sell television. But I had this amazing artist from the Philippines, Emmanuel Zerks Javier. I was like, this is the most beautiful, I just love this thing. And it was called Omega One. I loved it. I took it to a local printer in Burbank. Now, Burbank, if you've been in Burbank, California, Burbank is where Disney Studios is, Warner Brothers. I mean, just about every branch of major studio, Buena Vista. I mean, it's a huge studio town. And I was at this little corner print shop, and I was waiting for my print to come. And there was this rolled up architectural drawing, obviously waiting for somebody to pick up. And I'm not an architect. I can't read any of that stuff. My artistic skills I'm music, not art. So, but I thought, well, that looks interesting. But what made it really interesting was there's big red stamps, confidential, confidential, confidential. I'm like, okay, let's look. So I took it took it away from the counter, and unrolled it. And I thought I was going to see a big, huge building schematic. But what I saw was the entire corporate structure of NBC Universal.
Wow.
Because they had just merged not too long before. And I'm like, what is this? And I mean, it's huge. It's like 6 feet long and 4 feet. It's like a poster size with companies this size on them. Hundreds of companies, all organized. C Corps, LLCs, this trust, this here. And I'm looking at this going, whoa. I wish I could, I wouldn't dare steal it, right? Because I'm like, this is confidential corporate information, the likes of which, as somebody caught with, they could incarcerate you for violating whatever civic laws or whatever these guys have. So I'm looking at all these corporations. And just so you know, there's 3 giant pillars of Universal, NBC Universal. In those days, I'm sure it's different now. One was just Universal admin, stuff like that. The next was under Jurassic Park. All the money from Jurassic Park that they made, and all these companies, that none of which you know up here, and all of which you know down here at the bottom, the retail outlets and all that. And the other one is ET. the ET structure and all the companies. You don't know any of these holding companies up here, but you know all the retail companies down here. And I'm like, all they really, when I boiled it down, I took a picture on my cell phone. It was a terrible picture because in 2007, cell phones weren't that great.
Yeah, the flip phone, the flip phone.
Yeah. It was bad. Oh no, I had it was just
BlackBerry.
before.
Did you have a BlackBerry?
Yeah, it was I think it was a Razor.
Oh, or a Sidekick. I remember. Okay, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it wasn't a Sidekick. It was the flip. I'm so cool with my Razor, and I think it's so low res.
Huge. That was huge back in the day.
Huge, right? Huge. So and so I'm like, okay, well, I need to figure out why this is, and I boiled it down, and what it really was, if you can boil it down, was holding companies with C corps and doing business and taking risk with LLCs. And I was like, this is the answer, because C corps have huge problems, LLCs have huge problems, but put together, and which CPAs don't do. CPAs, I'll set you up with an S corp, I'll set you up with an LLC, but it's together. That's the secret to getting the three major things which I talk about in my book, which is asset protection, tax reduction, legacy preservation. Excuse me. And when you solve one, you kind of start solving all three, but you need to solve for all three to get any one of them to work the way you need it to. So I did it privately with my assets and my local family, friends, until about then I got married and moved to Tennessee. And started helping people in the crypto world, trading and all kinds of other stuff like that. And then it became clear when Biden said, hey, listen, I want to tax you on 50% of your capital gains. So far, he hasn't worked it out, but that's his intent. My phone started ringing. Well, what do you know about this? What do you know? And then I started being able to put forth ideas around, here's how I have done my thing. I have bylaws, I have minutes, I've hired attorneys for, and for my own selves. And then assist people in setting those things up for them in a corporate structure. So, I'm not a CPA, by God. I'm not a certified financial planner. I'm none of those things. I will have my enrolled agent status by, what is this, April, probably around July. So the IRS will think I'm smart at that point. But that's the transition that happened. And now, I help mid-level to small companies and folks with under 9-figure net worths basically be able to do those three things in a way that I think is stronger than just doing trusts. That's stronger than certainly having it in your social slave name. That's what we're all social slaves, right? On our social slave numbers. And in a way that allows you maximum flexibility and allows you to be able to do true business and make money, not just hold things and hope that works out.
That's smart. There's a lot to unpack there. Let's see.
It's a big story.
Yeah. Because there's a lot to it, man. And I'll be honest with you, a lot of people are dealing with all kinds of stuff, seeing the way the world's almost consolidating. You're seeing the gap between rich and poor get vastly bigger and astonishingly fast.
Well,
and it's a little upset. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, most people, what you're talking about is the destruction of the middle class. And most people in the middle class have the access or some kind of knowledge, a college degree, some kind of facility around a corporate, I have an LLC, I have an S corp, but the poor don't. And what we're discovering is that those people who have a CPA that set them up or try it on their own are missing the most important aspects. I've yet to have, in the hundreds of people that I've served and helped, yet to have somebody come to me with a fully compliant corporate structure or even a company. There's something wrong with their companies, and they're open to scrutiny, open to being broken into, and ultimately, if the IRS doesn't like what you're doing, they'll blow up your corporate structure and they'll break you back 7 years as though you hadn't had them. So we want to know what we're doing to set these corporations up, and I find most CPAs have no idea how to do it.
And it's not like overwhelmingly expensive either.
It can be.
Or maybe it can, but I was self-employed with my father for 10 years. We did just construction and stuff, but we had LLCs, we had business insurance. We didn't go any further than that. But I think an LLC was what, like $150 or something like that?
Yeah, the most expensive, I found this in the research for my book, the most expensive place to do an LLC, I believe it's New Hampshire or New Jersey. It's some New England state. I don't remember what it is. It's $1,000 for an LLC.
Wow.
And in California, from where I used to hail, it's I think it's like 250 or 350 for an LLC, but there's an $800 a year on year minimum tax. If you don't make a penny in your company, $800, $800, $800. So converse that with Wyoming or Utah. Utah's $49. Wyoming's 149 for the first year and 99 every year after that. So yeah, it's when people are like, it's so expensive. Well, no, what's expensive is setting up the 60 pages of bylaws. Because if you're taking the bylaws that you get from buying your corporate kit from Amazon and thinking that's going to do anything but get you into trouble, you're missing something.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. And yeah, no, I'm not even in construction anymore, so it's not an issue at all. But the future tax that Biden was talking about, like he wanted to literally tax you on what he thought you were going to make on capital gains, or what he thought you would make on dividends, or what he thought. And I don't even know how that's possible.
Well, my favorite one is, and that one's never going to pass. But what
Yeah, because it
might
doesn't
pass?
make. Okay, go
No,
ahead.
none of it makes. Wait, hold on. None of it makes sense, Reagan.
Well, if you want to go back, you want to go back. When you're talking about like the income tax, that was just to pay for World War II, right? Is that the story I understand correctly?
World War One.
World War One. Okay, I apologize. Okay.
Yeah, Federal Reserve, Jekyll Island, 1913, Federal Reserve, 1913, National Banking Act, and then you've got the taxes that just coincidentally and this is in the Constitution that the president has the right to emergency tax the people for a war or whatever if there's an emergency, and there was in fact an emergency. He definitely taxed the folks, and then people just kept paying the tax. They created the IRS. Just a bit of trivia that people ask me, they're like, well, why is it called the 1040 form? Why isn't it called like the
I don't know why they're called. I don't know why they do that. Why are they called
right? Yeah,
1040?
yeah, because every federal document has a special number attached to it, and they never can go back. So there's a CP number that there's a whatever the 5401 is. We're going to come levy your accounts. The 6702 is the frivolous filing document. They're all letters, right? But the 1040 was the next one in line. There was a 1039 that had been just filed by Congress, and then the actual personal income tax form from World War I is just the next one. It's just 1040. That's all it means. And it means nothing. It's just arbitrary. So, but they've taxed everybody on the 1040. They created the Internal Revenue Service to collect those taxes for the war effort, and then just never repealed it.
And they used to do bonds instead. They used to literally make you be willing to pay to go to war. And if you weren't willing, then they weren't going.
Right. Well, and what most people don't realize in those days is, and really until the 70s, 95% of Americans only paid 3% tax. It wasn't until Reagan era, Carter era, that they started ramping up the tax because inflation was going crazy. You remember, I don't know if you were alive in the 80s, you had to be. Yeah. In the 80s, where you buy a house on an 18% loan and you're like, I did pretty well with myself. I got an 18%.
Yeah, but they also were only like 40 grand.
Well, that's true, but you were only making 20 grand a year. So
I think the ratio was still in the common man's favor, especially when you consider that you probably were going to get a pension on top of that. So you take all those into account. And I think young men get eaten up on that. They look at, if I go work at McDonald's or Home Depot, I'm never going to be able to buy that house down the street.
I don't know how.
So now I'm never going to get a wife because she's never going to want to marry me if I'm going to never be able to buy her a house. So now they say, screw it, I'm going to smoke weed and play video games, stay in mom's basement, and I'll be really
that's how they like
Call
it.
of Duty. And
that's how the government likes it. Let's keep them apathetic and depressed and in mom's bed.
That's when you're inside the matrix right there, man. Because once your mindset is down that rabbit hole and you just say, I'm nihilistic, I give up.
Yeah.
It's very hard to get out of that hole because I don't think people realize, chasing your passion and having something bigger than yourself to do is the essence of of freedom
Masculinity.
and masculinity and happiness and all that. Because if you have nothing to strive for, you have nothing to chase, you have no dreams, the anarchy that's going to come when everything gets a little bit worse is crazy.
Well, I think you've hit on what I believe, kind of off the topic, but I believe one of the major differences, maybe the most major difference between men and women, is that women generally they're like, I'm good. I don't need a life purpose.
No,
I'm
no, no,
happy
no.
to.
They already have their purpose built in, just like their value is built in when they're born. Both those things are built in. We have to go find our purpose. We have to go find our value, and we have to cultivate it.
Yeah.
It's a whole nother game. That's why we have different priorities, different wants, different needs,
Yeah.
and rightfully so. We're supposed to be the opposite side of the coin.
That's kind of how that's set up. Yeah.
Yeah. And people don't realize if you put a male and female team together on one set goal, they're more likely to accomplish it than any other group of teammates. Two women, two men don't do as well as a male and female team. It's kind of like, what was it there, the X-Files and stuff. It was Scully and
Mulder.
Mulder. People don't realize that is the dynamic duo that works better than any other version.
Yeah. I mean, unless you're doing something.
They've tested
Yeah,
it.
unless you're doing something specific, like, oh, we got to roll some barrels uphill.
Yeah, but there's
or we
always
gotta
there's
do some
always an
knitting.
anomaly. There's always an anomaly.
But in general life, you're going to do better with a partner who's the opposite of you, and you're not going to do really more opposite than a woman.
Yeah. Isn't that amazing?
Funny how nature works.
It is. It's amazing. It's amazing. But yeah, man, there was so much just in what you just said, like the last 10 minutes. I wish I wrote most of it down. So you did say something about social slave and the social security number, I'm assuming is what you were trying to associate that with. And you have to work within the confines of the reality you have in front of you, no matter what. You're gonna fight the machine. You're gonna lose eventually. You know, you go back to the Matrix analogy. How many people can you have in that little hive-like city to stop the robots? The answer is never enough. It's never enough. Do you know what I mean? It's really never enough. Not that you shouldn't try, but it's just working.
Well, I think everyone should try. I think that's everyone argue. Well, you know, when I grew up, it was the 3% rule. The 3% rule is if 3% of Americans want change, there's revolt or rebellion or change or reform. One of them are words, right? Now, because of media and social media, I'm going to suggest it's 10%. That's 35 to 40 million Americans jumping on one bandwagon.
They see that, they shut it down real quick.
They would shut it down real quick. And that's
quick.
the danger of everyone believing the media, which is owned by the same folks that run the market, that want to take your money, that's owned by the same people rewriting the tax code, that's owned by the same people that are putting forth the anti-family values that we're seeing everywhere. Same folks. So, and you can, I'm not going to put on my tin hat and start talking about who they are, because it doesn't matter who they are. We just know that they are, and you can argue about who they are, fine. But the only solution for this is the 10% rule. That the 10% somehow, obviously not on social media, maybe TikTok because it's not yet regulated, but somewhere organize and jump on board and say this far, no farther.
Well, I've seen several people talk about, well, we're trying to be not doomsday preppers, but we're like mild preppers, and we want to make a prepper community nationwide, and we want to get together so that everybody can know who their local friendly prepper is if they live in that community. And the government labeled it a terrorist immediately. And they seem to be doing that over and over again. You see a big following with Donald Trump. All of a sudden, there's a bunch of guys that the federal government puts in there to stir up trouble so that it looks like everybody that follows them. Then they throw out the narrative for weeks, and they make it stick. And you see it over and over again. And I'm not saying that I'm a huge advocate of Donald Trump himself, but what I'm saying is it was him first. It looks like it's Elon Musk next, because Twitter and TikTok they seem pretty mad, man. I live in outside of San Antonio, and my daughter worked for one of the headhunters for Tesla, and that was like 10,000 jobs that left California. And I think the guy said, this is third person, so don't quote me, I think it was like 70 grand on average per job. If you lengthened out the engineers to the guy sweeping the floor, it was 70 grand. 10,000. That means everybody could get an entry-level house. 10,000 of them. Yeah, California was livid when he said, I'm a free thinker and I'm leaving.
Well, what else is he going to do? But let's just briefly talk about my view on Elon Musk, who I think is the flavor of the moment until they give Trump back his Twitter account. The problem with Elon Musk is he comes from them same folks who are running everything. His family are the elite of the elite, which maybe he's broken from it. That's great. But let's be clear what he's really doing. We know where we're going as a society. He's the one who, he didn't invent Tesla, but he took it over. He didn't invent SpaceX, but he took it over. He didn't invent Twitter, but he took it over. He didn't invent AI, but he's sort of the spokesperson for it now. What do all these things have in common?
They're going to be the catalyst, like the cell phone, the touchscreen cell phone was. Because if you look at AI and the robots and the self-driving cars, it changes everything. You think the layoffs at Facebook and Twitter and all that stuff are a big deal? The banks are gone. There's no reason to walk inside the building of a bank. Mm-hmm. When's the last time you needed to cash a check and go talk to a teller about anything?
Well, I do a lot, but that's because
that's weird, man. Come on, that's not normal. That's not
I know
normal.
It's not people. I just wrote a bunch of checks today, but I like checks because I'm kind of old school.
Okay, but you can cash a check with your phone. You can go to an ATM machine. There's a litany of ways to get around, never stepping inside the building.
So what he's doing, he's not selling products. He's collecting data. True. He's collecting data on where you go, how you drive, your phone habits, because when you're in the car, you're talking on the phone. That's all available to him. He's collecting data on so-called orbital flight, how people react to his space program. He's definitely collecting social media now with Twitter. And now with the AI, he's collecting data on how everyone's accessing it all day long, all across the world. And very soon, if not already, he's going to know everything about everyone to launch whatever it is he wants to launch, and everyone will jump on board, not because he's the right thing to do, but because he knows how to talk to everybody, because he knows everybody what everybody wants.
And he's federally funded. He's federally funded now. Now that he opened up those charging stations, he got a big, what was it? How much money was that grant that he got for doing that?
Well, you know he doesn't hurt for money when a $100 million rocket blows up and he laughs.
The fact that he put a car on top of a fucking rocket he bought from Russia blows my mind. Absolutely blows my mind. Yeah, he's an epic dude. He's an epic dude. And I don't know, man. See, okay. From my perspective, the elites, the media elites, the government elites, all those people, they play a game that I can't win. I'll never be in their circle. But Donald Trump made me feel like I could be a millionaire, so I could be like him. At least there's a chance that I could hit the target. I could pull back the bow. I could shoot at that target. I'm not allowed to shoot at the other target. Mm-hmm. So you got a lot of people there that are at least willing to go on. And the same thing with Elon Musk. He has that vibe where I can acquire some level of competency that equals his. Because I'll be honest with you, he tells the truth and it doesn't seem to go in his favor all the time. And it's not like he started doing that 2 years ago. I have a feeling he's been doing that for 40 years. Where he tells, he'll tell it the way he really sees it as. And he'll say engineers this, and he won't sugarcoat it for the political correctness. And he has no qualms about acting it out. So the whole point of faith is to act it out. You can believe all you want. If you don't actually take the steps to see if it's actually true, you can't really say you believe anything. And he put his money where his mouth is, man. He moved 2,000 miles.
Yeah.
Well, now he's closer to rockets too, so maybe that's a
little bit better. But nobody wants to be in California. I mean, In-N-Out just left. They're out here with me in Tennessee.
Yeah, man. I'm not gonna lie to you. I left New England to come outside of San Antonio, and I found my little Mayberry. But it's changing quick too. It's just changing so fast.
Yeah.
I thought you could stay away long enough, but social media, just the way society is shrinking, you can't get away from anything anymore. Not to the level you used to 30 years ago. You could disappear 30 years ago.
Yeah. Now disappearing requires you to live so uncomfortably. It's kind of rough.
Yeah, man. Again, solar panels sound great until you literally are on your own grid. acting like a
Yeah.
hermit, man. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's worth it. You know, every good thing is like a garden, right? You're going to have to till it, you're going to have to maintain it, and snakes are going to get in whether you like it or not. And if you're capable, if you have the wealth to put a wall around it, it's not forever. And conflict delayed is just conflict amplified. So you're going to deal with just bigger snakes later, or maybe even a dragon. Who knows how that's going to play out? But no matter what, you're going to have to face the world one way or another.
Well, that's a beautiful axiom, kind of relating back to what you said with folks who are prepping. When I first got into firearms, I did martial arts for 15 years, and I'm like, oh, I'll never own a gun. And then I got robbed at gunpoint in my house. I'm like, and now I'm going to own a gun. So what a lot of folks are doing, when, especially in California, when I lived there, all these mandates about what you can have and what you can't have, and how your guns are organized, and they're going to put, you have to do a DOJ search just to get ammo now, and people are like, oh, I'm just going to bury this in my yard so that when they come for the guns, they won't find it. And I'm like, that's the problem. That's a problem with Americans now. Americans are burying their most important asset in the yard in the hopes that, well, when they come to take it, they won't find that I have one and I'll be okay. Yeah, but that's missing the whole point. The whole point of having a gun, your liberty, the Second Amendment right at all, is that you use it. And we used it for 15 years. Now, we didn't have the 10%. We had a few thousand folks. Wasn't anywhere near enough. But those people that get on my TikTok and they're like, well, taxes aren't legal and you don't know what you're talking about. And I'm like, listen, I know better than most about how taxes aren't legal. But let me tell you this, everything, welfare, food stamps, Social Security, taxation, it's all incredibly legal. Not because the Constitution supports it, because it don't. It's because everybody's going, oh, yes, we should pay our taxes. And all the guys that are like, oh, well, my Second Amendment rights and my guns, I'm like, you know what? You guys should all have your guns taken away. Because you're not exercising the very rights for which you're standing. And just your Second Amendment right doesn't mean that you get to have a gun. It means you have it for a specific purpose, the absence of which means you should not be a part of the militia, whatever that might be. So that Americans are dead asleep while all of this is going on, the gender mutilation of children right in front of our faces. We're saying nothing about it. The situations all over the place in terms of how we're banking is defrauding people and taking pensions away, and how the stock market just ongoingly erodes people's funds for not just their retirement, for their generational wealth, and people still keep putting money in. It's like, this stuff is all not constitutional. None of it is good. None of it is supporting the family unit, and certainly none of it's American. And you can call me a white racist. I love that. Fine. But the point of the matter is, we're Americans. We're all Americans together. And whether I'm privileged or you're not or who is, the fact is, we should stand for something more than, I just want to be comfortable. I don't want bad things to happen to me, so I'm going to be quiet. If there's any country on the planet that should be standing up against, things that 10 years ago we would have rioted about, it's us. I'm not suggesting people riot. I'm not suggesting anything like that. But I am suggesting that people, if you're going to talk Second Amendment rights, if you're going to talk we're a free nation, if you're going to talk about we want to create financial and generational wealth, something's going to change. Now, I tried it for a while. Didn't work out for me. Not that I'm done, but I find that the most effective way to create and, like I said, keep the profits that they keep trying to take from us is in that incorporation. And it's also powerful because they ain't never going to ding the corpse, because the corpse run everything.
Good point.
And the same rules that apply to Amazon, Exxon, Apple, whatever, they apply to your C Corp and your LLC you set up in South Dakota or Wyoming or wherever you did. Same kind of rules. While they raised taxes last year, on the social slaves, they reduced taxes on corporations by 0.5%. So you kind of know which way this deck is stacked. And to your what you said, where you're like, Trump made me feel like I could hit the target over there. Well, we all have access to the corporate target. All of us, and all the rules and all the taxation capabilities and the flexibility and all of that. And to me, having done the fight for a while and having them, the very first thing they do is pull the rug out from under you, take your stuff, lien your properties, all that to try to shut you up. If you don't own anything and you've structured yourself, then whatever it is, fight, revolution, revolt, reform, whatever it is to come, and if Americans actually do wake up, you'll be ready to go.
I like that, man. That's a smart way to look at it, because you got to play within the system, especially the side that's going to win. You don't have a choice in that aspect.
Yeah, I mean, you can choose to be quiet, and you're the problem, or you can choose to.
Yeah. I agree with that 100%. I think that's one of the problems on why they're allowed to do this is you have to tell the truth. Otherwise, you're not even on your journey. You're on some weird, deceitful journey in and of itself. But you also have to be able to say, I'm not going to do this. And actually mean it when you say it. Because one of the reasons why, if you look back at the 20th century and what happened in Russia and stuff, you got guys that literally said, that's not my job, or worse, I'm only doing my job. And they were literally starving people to death. So,
well, that's the reason the Third Reich was allowed.
Oh yeah.
Because
people
those
don't realize you can't get the top. You can't get the top to do anything unless the bottom complies.
And the Germans were like, "Oh, okay. Well, as long as we're quiet, I'm sure it'll go away."
If one person would have stood up, that could have all been stopped at the first day.
Well, maybe more than one.
Well,
but
you know what I mean. It doesn't take that many. We're more connected.
3%. The 3% rule.
I don't think it takes 3%. Do you think
in Germany,
when Hitler first tried to do his coup there, I think it was like 300 people.
Well, in the beginning, but again,
my point is though, he won.
People stayed quiet. Yeah. Same with Stalin. Stalin was the same thing.
Yeah. So I'll be honest with you. I think we're way more connected than we think. And when you stand up and say, I won't do it, you have no way of realizing what kind of rippling effect it has on everybody else. And nowadays, we're more connected than I can even comprehend. Because if you know 1,000 people on Facebook and you need to get your car fixed, you can ask 1,000 people in 1 second.
More or less, depending on the algorithm. But yes.
You understand the concept, though.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And that's exponentially true now.
Yeah.
On every level of any, it's absolutely insane.
Yeah. The thing that will break us is, I mean, if we take media aside, obviously we got to stop watching the news. Yeah, but the thing that will break us is the bipartisan political structure. That for the first time that anyone can remember, we're killing off relationships because of how you voted.
Yeah, I never understood that. You know, I did this when I was in my 20s, early 20s. I would argue with loved ones and family members over like Thanksgiving dinner.
Yeah.
About someone else's opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, think about this. Original thought is hard to come by, right?
It is.
Most things have already been written down.
Yeah.
The vast majority of what's been said has already been said. And your original thought, 90% of the time, is not even your original thought.
Yeah.
It really isn't. You're and not only that, but people don't realize you recycle your own thoughts in your own head. You're literally reinforcing your belief system by repeating it to yourself. And it's not like you're constantly coming. Your brain is too lazy to constantly come up with new stuff unless you force it.
We like to call it inherited conversations.
Yeah, man, it's reality. So I'll be honest with you, you're gonna stop talking to your aunt over some bizarre argument that no one cares about killer bees or what the hell's in Hillary Clinton's emails anymore. And that's around the time I stopped watching the news. I realized that stuff didn't matter, and I've got a new angle on how I look at news in general. If it lasts 3 weeks, then I'll listen to the premise of the idea. If it doesn't make it 3 weeks, it's not even worth listening to.
Well, people forget that at the end of every news broadcast, for a flash, this is for entertainment purposes only. Has to be there because they're not telling you the truth.
Yeah, no, they're very self.
And as the advent of AI gets better and better, they won't even have to stage actors in situations. They'll just be able to generate it.
Can you imagine generated reality?
No, it's happening now.
Okay, I know that. I've seen some of the pictures.
Pictures. Right now, there's a scam going, especially for crypto people, where they'll call your daughter, who's 20, or they'll call they'll act like you're their daughter. So they'll call your daughter, say, "Hi, is Joey there?" And they're like, "Joey, who? No, I think you have the wrong number." They only need that much of her voice, and now they can create her entire voice. Now she calls dad. "Dad, I'm trying to sign up for this job. I don't remember my social security number. Can you find it for me?" And that's her. "I'm on my friend's phone." Dude, that's happening right now.
Crazy.
It's so impeccable you can't tell.
Isn't that
and
nuts?
that's now. And then they're going to do full visual.
Well, have you seen the visual? Have you seen the visual ones? You can make an avatar now that, I'm not gonna lie to you, the way it shadows and the way it has like ticks in the eyes and stuff, it's almost unnoticeable now.
Yeah.
They said they actually scammed like 2,000 dudes to pay for OnlyFans pictures of freaking girls that don't exist.
That's right.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's insane. How? I truly don't understand the OnlyFans thing to begin with, personally.
Well,
but that's a whole
different
other
conversation.
Yeah,
different
yeah,
conversation.
But it just, you bought a fake picture. I mean, the human being does not exist.
Well, one of the things that one of the things that the IRS agents do when they come to your door is if they have documents at all, they'll say, "Well, did you sign this?" And they'll show you a picture of your or a copy of your 1040 and with your signature. And if you go, "Oh, I guess so," well, did you really sign that? No, that's a copy. That's a copy. You signed the original, maybe, but that's over in Ogden, Utah, if you're with the Criminal Investigation Division. You've got a copy. So when they go, "Well, didn't you sign this?" And then you're like, "That's not real. That's a photo at best of what was the original." So to your OnlyFans thing, like, you bought something that isn't real. Is that person really real? You don't know. It's on a photo. And now with AI, you can't possibly tell. Are they real or not? You wouldn't know if I'm running an AI on you right now. Low resolution on Zoom, that's a lot easier to deal with than,
way easier, because I'll never know. But I'll be honest with you, I think it's going to be like that Harrison Ford movie. What was that movie? Shoot, why can't I think of it? The one where the robots, he would test the robots to see if they were real humans, or what was that movie?
You talking about Blade Runner?
Blade Runner.
Okay.
There's going to be little ticks. There's got to be little ticks that people will notice. There's got to be a way. Now, granted, maybe our brains will get lazy and we'll stop noticing. Or maybe it'd be one of those things where you're always touching counterfeit money so you can't tell the real thing. Maybe.
Well, that's one of the reasons why I mostly left the film scoring world, because once the advent of digital orchestras and all that other stuff came about, now people don't like listening to real orchestra. They'd rather listen to the synthetic orchestra.
Really?
Yeah. So no one can tell the difference anymore. I mean, unless you're a Gen X musician. But now it's like, it sounds like Hans Zimmer. I mean, nothing wrong with Hans Zimmer, but it's like, that's synthetic. That's not the real thing. And people's like, "I like that better." Wow. It's just like now, when I used to do recording with vocals, and there's a thing called auto-tune, which locks your voice perfectly into tune. You probably heard of it.
Yes.
It's been around for years. Works really well, but it adds a certain edge to your voice, a little. And now everybody does it so much that you hear it everywhere. It's an edge that's there. And I was recording this really, really good singer. I mean, she's like singers were before the 90s, before they came out with this. You had to sing, you really had to sing. So she was singing, and I was like, wow, she's great. She's on pitch. She's perfect. And the producer came in and he's like, "Well, it doesn't really sound good." So we fooled around with all kinds of frequencies and high frequencies and lows to get that edge. And he wasn't happy. He goes, "It doesn't sound commercial to me." I'm like, "She sounds amazing. This sounds, I don't know." And I go, "Let me try something." I went in and destructively pitched her voice down so it was flat. The whole thing. Destructively altered the file, made her flat. And when you listen to it, you're like, "Oh, that sounds horrible." And then added auto-tune.
No shit.
And then he goes, "Oh, yeah, what'd you do?" I'm like, "Doesn't matter."
That is insanely frustrating. But is that going to have ramifications in everything else?
Well, the point I'm trying to make is, once we get used to the synthetic...
That's what I mean. Yeah, we get used to fake money. It's hard to tell the real thing.
How would you tell from the real thing? Can you tell the difference between wouldn't you rather have a microwave meal than one cooked on a pan? That's digital. You've digitized your food basically with bazillions of microwave beams.
I no longer have a microwave, to be
Well, there you go. So you wouldn't know.
My kids broke my microwave.
Oh, well, there's a
Frustrating.
reason why the Treasury Department, when they go to counterfeiters, with the Secret Service, they sit them in rooms for days and make sure they only touch real money, the real stuff.
Oh yeah, no,
off
I've
the
heard
mint.
that story. Yeah, I've heard that,
Yeah,
so that they don't get fooled when the time
yeah.
comes.
They're like, this is instantly they know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, there's so many nuances to the new technologies that are coming out right now, and it is definitely the wild, wild west. When I said that at the beginning, I meant it, man. It's
Yeah.
wilder than you really realize, and not only that, but everybody knew that things were going to change with the advent of the smartphone. We all knew it would, but we had no idea that Tinder and Instagram would turn out the way it turned out, and dating would change. So that no one had any idea of
Culture.
all the yeah. So there was unforeseen ramifications.
Well,
And
I'm going to be releasing videos on this because I think the most dangerous thing we're facing in this nation is the CBDC. And it's so prevalent. The CBDC is the digital currency that we're
yes,
going to technically go on with, I think. We hope not. But your phone is such a semi-permanent attachment to your physique that they know that once they release it, then your banking will be on your phone. All of your finances, because they'll get rid of cash. So the only way to get at your money is through your phone. And like in China, if you spit on the street or say F you to your mom in your house because they're surveilling it from your phone, or you jaywalk, your phone goes red.
oh yeah, the
You got,
barcode by which you can sell things goes from green to yellow to red based on what they want from behavior in that area.
or
And
you posted
I don't
on
think
Reagan's
people
page.
realize how big they have that. Because that, what is it? That one app to rule them all. What was it called? They have one app it's YouTube, it's Facebook, it's Instagram, it's TikTok, it's your banking account, it's Amazon, all in one app. Yeah. And they literally basically control everything. Like Elon Musk was God, and he had all that stuff all structured. CPPC or whatever, the Chinese.
Yeah, I don't know what it is.
I'm not sure, but they have control. They know all of it. So if you live in a city, they have complete and utter control, and it's a social score instead of a credit score. And you could be working 40 hours and make $20 an hour, or you could work 40 hours and make $6 an hour. And you, like you said, you jaywalk, and your nephew might get a letter saying your uncle does it one more time, you're not going to university.
Right.
Yeah, it's
Well,
wild the
even,
control they have, and
well,
digital currency is going to be the backbone of that.
that's how they'll do it. They're already trying to change the Uniform Commercial Code to
Now,
take what currency means and turn it into something that'll allow that. And once they pass, all 50 states pass this current alteration to their Uniform Commercial Codes. Montana just rejected that; she just vetoed it. But there's a bunch of
I think Florida and Texas are trying to veto it too.
yeah, because that's the foundation upon which I should say the foundation, the absence of which means it can't happen. You've got to change the Uniform Commercial Code so that this allows this digital currency. Otherwise, it can't happen. So, but if it gets passed, that's it. We're done.
There's another commerce that people don't take into consideration. The black market is what $2 trillion a year worth of drugs and sex slaves and trafficking and people moving and all that stuff. I think it's like $2 trillion, and that's cash money in American dollars. It's not in yen. It's not in a ruble. It's not in the euro. The black market almost exclusively works in cash in American dollars. So I think that would save because you get rid of the all cash, you're still gonna have a black market. So I don't think they can deal with a black market that would just get bigger.
They won't have to. They don't have to deal with that. Because if you have people that resist, people that saying, or people who, let's say, they didn't get vaccinated, because you have to get vaccinated in order to have your CBDC access to your phone, because Apple will run it, and then Apple will happily grant that to the government for you to have your medical records established with your health app, and it didn't say you got vaccinated, so you won't have access to your bank anymore until you do, and all those other things. The fact is, though, that people are like, well, we're going to prep. We'll live in our communities. And in our communities, we'll be able to grow the crops. Like right now, I live in
No,
a
they
place
would
where
love that. Yeah, they would love that because now you're just a sitting duck in one spot.
well, that's okay, but you won't be for long because even though they have cows and they have chickens and you have greens and all that, and you can support each other and make a little commune, who owns the property? You don't. The county does. And if you don't have access to the CBDC currency, you can't pay your property taxes. You're evicted in a year. So it's all nice and jammy for a year, and then everybody's out. And what are they going to do with 100 million Americans who are now homeless and don't have economic capability? What are they going to do with 100 million Americans who can't back the security of the United States with their labor? That's the question everybody should be asking.
Well, in Russia, the basic premise of what they did was they just killed them.
That's exactly right.
And they had no qualms about doing it either. It was
And
brutal.
wouldn't it?
And this is
Yeah.
real life. This is historical fact. This is
50
not
million, 50 million of his own people.
blows my
That was in the
mind.
40s,
Yeah,
the 30s and the 40s.
so we're talking airplanes, cars, trains, TVs, at least at the movie theaters.
Yeah.
So we're talking modern reality. It wasn't like horse and buggy
No.
and pikes. It
Yeah,
was
tanks.
Yeah, man, this is real life modern society.
Yeah, postmodern society.
Yeah, wild, man. And the stories you hear from that are almost unbelievable.
Until you start hearing him here in the 21st century.
So let's go back. Yeah, let's go back. How did they get there? People weren't telling the truth, and they wouldn't
Yeah.
stand up and say, "I'm not going to enforce this bad law." Now,
Which, let's add one piece to that some people don't know, that the radical right in those days, because that Stalin was left, so the radical right started to mobilize. They did start to mobilize, but the not the bourgeois, the bad Russian guys,
the Bolsheviks.
The Bolsheviks got real smart, and they were like, how do we keep the right down? We got to keep the right down, because if they rise up, we're going to have Tsars and the kings again, which we just got rid of them with Lenin. How do we stop that? So they created an organization that rallied the right, said, this is bad, we're going to fight them, this is all the real truth about how horrible these people are, we're going to do this, rah, rah, we're going to bring them down. And what was their headline? Trust the process. In fact, in Russian, I believe it was called something like trust us. Where have we heard this before? QAnon. QAnon rallied the right to all this crazy, weird stuff.
It was weird stuff. I was like, why are people going down this rabbit hole?
But it said, don't worry, we've got this. And literally was a psyop to keep the right down from doing what normally the right would do. And it worked for the Bolsheviks. That whole right just said, oh, I guess they're handling it. Okay, we don't have to take the risk. Someone else is doing it for us. It's a very clever psyop, and it's been going on since then.
Wow.
And we're seeing it here.
Because something definitely is different. I've been through a couple of recessions, and it does seem like something's definitely different.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's very different. We were dealing with all this. We thought this would happen in 2009 when we were in the middle of embroiled in it all, but the technology wasn't there. We didn't have the technology. And to me, there's only two solutions, and it's prepping is defense. Prepping is not offense. It's all going to come down if we don't, as a nation, the 10% rule, stand up and go, up with which we won't put, y'all. And the only way to do that is if we incorporate ourselves and protect ourselves first from the financial hell that will come if it's all in our social slave numbers. That's
pretty wild, man. That's actually a pretty smart way to, you know what, you went through the fire, and that worked out quite well for you, because that's actually a well thought out way of dealing with the Matrix.
Yeah, I didn't work out quite well for me. It was not pleasant. Nothing about that. I wouldn't do it again. Let's put it that way. What I had to go through. But I'm glad to be able to help everybody, as many people as want to wake up, and different kind of woke, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah, that term is kind of dying out. It's kind of a lame term now.
No, not to those who are.
It's weird the way the world turned out. I would have never guessed when I was a kid that the world would be the way it is. I really would have never saw it, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
We did not talk about anything I was planning on talking about.
That happens.
Yeah. And we didn't get through any of the questions about how you got started and how this all worked out. But could you give us a quick run through on how you started TikTok and why you saw it necessary to go down that rabbit hole?
Well, I just had a friend who said you should do TikTok, and I'm like, I'm too old to do TikTok. And he said, no, you should try it. And I literally was doing TikTok in the same way I was doing Twitter and doing Facebook and not really Instagram, but and then TikTok. I have to believe because of the lack of censorship, people have responded.
Yes, I like that about that. You know, it's just organic.
Yeah,
If
yeah,
you've got a message and the visuals and the sounds ain't terrible, eventually with some momentum, you will get the following, man. It's wild.
yeah, yeah. Well, I appreciate you. I'm happy to come back if you want more questions.
Yeah, yeah, we went down so many different little paths. There's no way to tie that all together, man. Except for definitely find a way to get yourself incorporated. Definitely find a way to do the C corp, get it all situated. Because you're right, I do see. Because I don't want to see a fight. Because people don't realize if there was a big war or there was a big, everybody would starve. The kids that have nothing to do with it would starve. The women that have nothing, it would be a hellhole. Because how long do you think the groceries would last in the stores?
We'll be lucky if we get past the summer right now, the way it is.
Yeah, it's wild, man. All right. Well, I appreciate your time, Mark. How can everybody reach you if they want to get in touch with you and talk to you about the stuff you do on TikTok?
Well, you can go to TikTok, which is TikTok Taxx, TIC, not TIK. TIC, TOC, TAXX. TIC, TOC, TAXX. That's my handle there. Or my website, a contact page, Mark with a K, Mark Edward Lewis, LEWIS.com. MarkEdwardLewis.com. Easiest way. And, I love chatting with people about how we can.
Well,
how we can
I didn't realize how wild of a journey you've had from Tinseltown all the way to Tennessee, man.
It's been wild.
Yeah,
Sure.
that's a wild story. And I'm sure there was so many things that could have been also brought up that could have went down a whole nother path in conversation.
Yeah, there's a few things.
Oh, I'm sure, man. I'm sure we didn't even scratch the surface. Well,
Yeah.
Mark, I hope you have a great day, man.
Thank you so much.
All right.